show dedicated to the construction industry. 2022 has been another interesting year for the construction industry, and so as this is our last episode of 2022, I've asked our Managing Director, Mark Fiddy, to join me today to take you through Metpro's perception as a manufacturer of the key moments throughout the year, good and bad, and also what we perceive is going to happen in 2023. Hello, Mark. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, good morning, Jody.
How are you today? Is it nice and cold where you are?
It's freezing, but the heating's on, so all good.
Okay, lovely. Well, Mark, I know this is quite a busy time for you now, coming to the end of the year, so we'll try and get through this as quickly as possible for you. Should we dive right in?
Absolutely, let's go.
Okay, so let's start with successes. We always like to be positive at Metpro Group. So what do you think have been our biggest successes this year? And also, what do you see as being the big wins for the industry?
We'll come back on the industry, because I think the industry's been more challenging. But I think let's talk about Metpro and our successes. And as I always like to do in any meeting that we have, both internally and externally, is talk about our customers. And I think the biggest success has to be the number of trading customers. They continue to grow on a monthly basis. The level of spend from these customers is also increasing. We're selling more customers a wider range of products than we did in 2021. And I think there's a big change this year that I hadn't seen since I've been at Metpro, which is loyalty, which I would suggest loyalty hasn't always been at the forefront of our minds, but we're now seeing a lot more loyalty from customers. There's been a lot of changes in the industry. There's quality issues out there, availability issues. But in spite of all that, we've actually had a huge amount of loyalty from a growing number of customers, for which we're obviously very pleased and very grateful. So I think from the customer perspective, it's been a great picture. We're increasing our market share, absolutely, in terms of a number of our product categories. And we're becoming more relevant in the sector, which is obviously the key part of trying to build a successful and maintainable business. As you may remember, back in July 2021, we bought the Demon Cato business, a range of concrete and roller tray products. And to be fair, I think that's been an amazing success story for Metpro. We're gaining more specification, and there's a continuing willingness for electrical contractors to recognise the time-saving benefits of these products rather than the pure product cost. And as labour shortages become more challenging, we're seeing more adoption of that product range. So I think really, really positive story for us, Jake. We can't do it without a team. I think we've acquired quite a bit of new talent this year. It's been a difficult marketplace trying to find people that can help us maintain our service excellence, and also getting the right fit. That's always a challenge. We can be quite quirky as a business, as you know. And it's not just about having the skills, they have to fit in the style of the organisation. And I think we've done a pretty good job at getting the right type of people into our business that understand the culture and what we're all about. So that's been a great news story. One that perhaps we don't talk about very often, which is the support from our bank, RBS. We put quite a bit of investment in this year in terms of people, in terms of inventory, a little bit of CapEx. And RBS have been fantastic in supporting the growth strategy that we're on. And again, we don't talk about it openly, but not every business has that same level of support. So we're pretty grateful for that. And then finally, as we got into the last quarter of the year, we launched some new products, particularly steel channel and rod. That looks like it's been well received based on the quality of the product. The customer service is unchanged, and that's a growing segment of products that we think will stand us in good stead moving forward and make us more relevant for 2023.
Lovely.
So all in all,
I think
a pretty positive story.
Yeah, I mean, I quite agree. I mean, I've been there throughout. I've seen the stuff that we've been doing, and it really has been fantastic. From my perspective, working in marketing, I can certainly see that growing trend of. I mean, people are commenting a lot more about certainly the Demon Cato suite of products. We've had. I mean, there's been a few comments around it's going into Rolls-Royce projects, and quite prestigious construction. So It's been really, really good. Why do you think the Demon Cato products have resonated so well? Because they're new for us as we acquired the business last year, but we've always been the manufacturing partner, and certainly Conlock's been around for nearly 15 years now, I think.
So while I think it's been so easily adopted, I think the labour shortages are a key thing. I think it's a non-skilled, value-added product is one. I think the fully galvanised nature of the system, there's concerns around corrosion out in the marketplace. That avoids all of that. I think some of the concerns people may have had historically around, well, do I maintain my earth bonding? I think we proved that they're completely unfounded.
Yeah.
And like most things, once you try it, it's very difficult to go back. It's so much easier. Whilst there is a higher cost to the product, the time to install, the fact you don't need to take a pipe bender, cutting compound, replace your dies and your stocks, there's a lot of benefits. And we're seeing that. And I think certainly from the end client's perspective, the need to get projects finished. There's a lot of projects that during COVID were on hold, deferred, mid stages. It's a lot quicker to get it done in this stage. So I think that's probably the underlying reason, Jake. And also the fact that the more people who use it, the more they talk about it. We have a lot of feedback in the business, as you know. We're very active on LinkedIn and other social media sites. We get some great feedback there. So the more people talk about it, the greater the opportunity. And finally, there is no competition to it. It is the one and only product out there that complies. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to add to that as well, we had that. It was a bit of a coup for us this year, bringing in and completing the Conlock system really with Tube, and then also the addition of the clean room finish as well. So all that's now backed up with a 7-year warranty. I think that's really resonated with people.
Yeah, and I think it's the right thing to do. And like most things, Jake, you talk about the warranty, doesn't become important until you need it. And a lot of the customers have said to me, well, yeah, but Mark, why does it matter? Well, it'll only matter when you have a problem. And at least we'll stand behind it. It is underwritten by Metpro, so we'll always stand behind our products, as you know, Jake. So
yeah, okay. Well, look, there's a couple more things in the positives, but there was one when earlier you talked about finding the right people, and the recruitment challenge this year was a pretty hefty challenge. I think in the EDA surveys, it was in the top 3 for a number of months, which it hadn't I don't think it ever been before. And I remember you were recruiting for a role in our sales team. And do you remember how many interviews that you had to go through?
33. 33 interviews. But it was worse than that, actually. So I interviewed 33 people, made offers to 2, because actually we needed 2 people at the time. And after waiting 6 weeks, the person decided not to join us and took another job 2 days prior. So that was quite disappointing. So I don't think there's any guarantees. But my old boss used to say you need to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince. And I think there's a bit of that going on. And fortunately, we have had to wait. You know where I am. I don't want to just employ average people. I want to get the right quality people. I'd rather wait than have the wrong person. And I think we've been pretty successful eventually in landing the right people. And we're still looking for people now. I mean, we can do a bit more in the external sales support and some more internally. So that hunt will begin again early in the new year. So I don't think that talent question is going to go away easily. But if we do move more into recession, maybe there'll be more opportunity for a few different people to join the business.
Lovely. Okay. So just before moving on to unfortunately the challenges or the negatives, an addition as well for us this year is that Metpro Group is now officially classed as domestically carbon neutral. So we've gone through a massive data gathering project. And we put it all in. We have our emissions reports available, and for years 2019, 2020 and 2021, all of Metpro's Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions are officially offset. So that's been a really big thing for us this year.
Absolutely, and I think when you manufacture in Asia, and you bring product in there, our carbon footprint is probably not the same as somebody sitting close by us in Smethwick. But in terms of what we need to do corporately as an organisation, then it's the right thing to do to make sure that we offset that. And I think, Jake, you've been very active in selecting where we want to spend our money to offset it. And, I think we've done some good stuff there. I think, we're supporting existing sites, aren't we, where there's already things happening. And, maybe you want to talk about that for a second. I think that's quite important.
Yeah, so we were working with, we are still working with a business called Smart Carbon Calculator. We actually had Lee Jackson on from Smart Carbon earlier in the year to talk through why this is so important. And then off the back of that, and once our reports were in place, we then went and spoke with Forest Carbon, who have offset our emissions in the conservation coast in Guatemala. So it's a protected forestry and nature conservation project. There was a few that were available. That was the one that spoke to us the most. And as you mentioned there, working over in China, there are a lot of emissions coming out of factories. So whilst things are being pumped into the atmosphere, at least we're pumping some good on the other side of things through the forests.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and also to say, Jake, that of course they're existing projects. I think as we continue to grow, our footprint's going to grow, and I think we need to also consider investing back now in the UK in the longer term projects where you don't see immediate benefit, you see benefit down the line. So I think that's already on our radar, isn't it, of how we look at that moving into 23 up to 25.
Absolutely, and also how can we? Because you're quite right. Obviously we're looking to continue to grow, and with that comes more emissions. But there are a myriad of ways that we can mitigate that growth. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but our current goal is that we'll be carbon neutral 100% by the end of 2024.
Well, I think we'll struggle for 24 now, Jake. I think mid-25 was the latest view that we've had on that. Okay. Still a lot of work to do. We've done a lot of the infrastructure in the UK. We've changed all the warehouse lighting, vehicles, EV chargers all are in place. We're looking at on-roof generation. Not sure whether we're going to go with that as yet. But there's other ways for us to deal with this. So that's certainly not going to go away. So very much front and centre of our thoughts moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone out there listening is, that you're looking for any more information, please get in touch. We'll be happy to share that with you. Okay, that's the good stuff. Let's talk about the challenges now. So, what have we seen as a business that have been the key challenges in 22? And as you mentioned earlier, that the industry has seen possibly more challenge than positives this year. But if we stick with Metpro first of all as a manufacturer.
Yeah, look, I think 2022 has been interesting because if you looked at it purely from a results perspective, you'd say we've had phenomenal growth, best year the company's ever had, growing customers, loyal suppliers, loyal customers, great picture. But I think our biggest challenge through the whole of 2022 is being able to maintain our differentiation in the market in terms of quality of products and the customer service we provide due to availability of product. And I think if we go back, we sometimes forget the start of the year, what it was like and how we've ended the year. So, at the start of the year, we had raw material and freight availability issues. We saw shipping times extend from 33 days to late 60s, early 70 days. Well, that's another month's worth of stock you need to carry to deal with that. We've had the joys of the port strikes, the port delays. We had freight that was travelling all the way around the world 2 or 3 times before it landed. In Felixstowe. We had fuel surcharges, increasing energy costs, uncertain customer demand. Then we had Liz Truss turn up for a few weeks and decided to send the currency into a spiral. And then to top it all off, we've got further COVID lockdowns in Asia. And that was a reality 3 or 4 months ago, and it's very much a reality now. As we sit here talking today, whilst they've looked to release a lot of the COVID restrictions in Asia, my understanding from Andy this morning is that that might be the case, but then they've got massive outbreaks of COVID in certain manufacturing areas. Well, that's going to be another challenge for us to manage, and what's going to be knock-on effect, I don't know. But I think if you think about all the things I've just discussed there, it's actually been really challenging in certain periods of the year. I don't think we've had 2 or 3 months where everything's been really straightforward. So, you know, they are challenges by the nature of what they are. But I think the last 3 years has really shown us how we can react and adapt and modify our approach to make sure we do the best that we can at any given moment in time. And I think with the exception of a really difficult 6 weeks, end of May to very, very early July, I don't think we've had any real disruption in availability of product. And even that was only 4 SKUs. So I think in terms of our purchasing function and the operational team, what they've done there to keep us floating has been fantastic. So I'd just like to thank those guys while I'm on in now.
Yeah, I quite agree. And yeah, I've heard from Andy as well about this these coronavirus increases. It's a strange thing, weirdly, now to be talking about COVID at the end of 2022. When, I mean, certainly from my personal perspective, I haven't even thought about it for the best part of 12 months, probably. I don't know if that's the same for you.
Well, I think we've been through, the UK's been through a massive vaccination programme, and I think that's not the case in Asia, fundamentally. So when they get an outbreak, their control mechanism was, put everybody at home or put them into a centre. There's no real vaccination programme. So I think that, as you say, in the UK, do we talk about it so much? There's a lot of it flying around at the moment, certainly where I live. I was speaking to somebody yesterday who said that a lot of people with COVID at this moment in time. But I think it's a reality of where we are. I don't think it'll ever go away. I think it'll be like the common cold to a certain extent. But we just have to manage the situation, Jake, and I think we've been pretty good at managing our own 4 walls rather than worrying about other people's. And I think that's the way we should continue to move forward.
I quite agree. Okay. Now, there was... I spoke to Andy and Larry earlier this year talking about stock levels going into the close of these 12 months. And the general feeling was that the stock levels had kind of plateaued. Everything was looking okay now, largely. But Larry mentioned about the ongoing fallout from the conflict over in Europe. Do you still see that as a challenge for the industry, certainly now at the tail end of the year?
Andy's, bless Andy, he's got too much stock. So it's very easy to sit there and say, I'll be okay, he's got loads of stock. So we have. To be fair, we always have to invest in inventory prior to Chinese New Year. The bigger we are, the more we need to carry. I think, this business has been built very strongly on Arthur's premise of, if you haven't got stock, you can't sell it, and it needs to be the right quality stock. I don't think that will ever change. Do I think people will get caught out? Yes, I do. But again, that depends on customer demand as we move into 2023. We're having a really strong end to the year. It seems to be quite buoyant out there from what I'm hearing. Q1 next year so far looks okay as best we can see. But I try not to worry too much about other people. As long as we're in the right space, that's good enough for me. And the one thing we can say is that in pretty much every instance, we'll have available inventory to support our customers. So that's all we're here to do, really, isn't it, fundamentally?
Absolutely.
So,
I quite agree. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, going into next year then, which is only a matter of weeks away, what are you seeing there as the... Let's start with the challenges for 2023, because then we'll have a nice positive negative sandwich. What are you seeing as the big issues potentially there?
I think there's a few, isn't there? In terms of where we're going with energy costs, the impact of that to product, interest rates, they don't look like they're going to decline anytime soon. The level of inflation, the pressure on wages. As a business, we're dealing with that. I think we've looked after our people quite well this year. We're offering further salary increases next year from January 1. So I think we're trying to do the right thing there.
Yeah.
The market itself, well, construction stats looks like it's a bit negative, but in our world, we've got new products to bring to market. We're taking market share. There's still plenty of space for us to grow. So, that's not the biggest of challenges. I think, we've had a very difficult December in particular in the loss of a colleague. And I think one of our greatest challenges is going to be to replace Mark Horton. Mark's been in this business for a long period of time, big presence in the business, huge knowledge bank, team player, great customer support skills. I think one of our biggest challenges is going to be to replace somebody or find somebody to replace Mark. That's going to be a real challenge. We talked about finding people who meet the Metpro culture. Mark was all of that, wasn't he, really? He
Absolutely.
was customer, help anybody, just a genuinely really good bloke. And that's been a big loss for everybody in the business. And from what's been a great year, that's been the biggest thing that's hit everybody quite hard, actually. So replacing him will certainly be one of our greatest challenges. The rest of it will be what it'll be. I think we're back to add, repeat what we did at the start of this year. Make sure we do the right stuff. The challenges will come. They might be the same. They might be different, but we'll all have to face them. So I think for us, it's a case of best foot forward, first up, best dressed. Let's make sure we're in front of it all and see where we go from there. So again, this business is nothing without the people. We need more people as we grow. Finding them could be challenging, but let's see where we go. At the end of the day, we seem to manage our way through the difficulty pretty well. I think we've all become a bit more robust during the difficult times, and hopefully, as we move through the year, things will pan out a bit better than we hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole because at the start of this year, we were maintaining that. In the items that we were putting out into the market, it had negative connotations, and then I think that whole this is quite miserable now, when there is a lot of positive to consider as well, and that whole approach is I've certainly found it really uplifting, and getting back to the keep calm and carry on.
Well, I think the trouble is you end up becoming a doom monger, but. Some of the pieces that I've written are all about the reality of people phoning us up and saying what's going on and what you're seeing in this and what you're saying with that. So information pieces to try and at least give some clarity in what we're seeing in the marketplace can turn into quite a negative story. And I think certainly towards the the Q3 that was a very different approach. And let's try and put a bit more positive spin on it, because as a business it's been hugely positive. So. And again, for us, it's about just doing the right stuff and trying to be positive. We are an honest business. We do tell people what's going on. I think we're pretty straightforward, and hopefully we'll continue to do so.
Absolutely. And in that vein, let's carry on in that vein then. Positivity. What do you see as the big opportunities for 23? I know we've talked about new products that we're bringing in. Customer loyalty is growing. There's some opportunities to bring in new staff members. What else is there out there, do you think, for us?
Well, I think there's 5 on my agenda for next year, Jake. The first is to continue to review and increase our product range. We've launched a few new products. There's more to come. They might not be particularly technical. But they're range fillers and gaps that we don't have. Particularly our fixings range is a bit light. We could do a bit more in there. The Demon Cato brand, in terms of specification and manufacturing capability that brings, there's further development to come there. Our people, come back to the people. We're investing in the form of training for the existing staff and new personnel to help manage the growing customer base and the product portfolio. We haven't historically spent a lot of time and effort worrying about personal development, but I think certainly this year we're starting to do a bit more with that, and there's more that we need to do with that. As we grow, we have a Metpro culture, and we want to grow within and expand from within, and then bring people across. One that's is close to your heart, Jake, and is starting to get traction, is to continue to drive the digital agenda. Our web portals, both for our our traditional electrical wholesaling partners and for our OEM and end user customers. We've seen a lot more adoption of that this year. And in a number of instances, we're not having to pay, which is quite pleasant. So people see the benefit of using it rather than us having to pay. So I've never been keen on that. If you see value in a web offering, then great, use it. And if you don't, well, there's a lot of self-serve stuff that you can get from there. So I think there's a lot to come from that. And then this might be one of our greatest opportunities. It might be a risk. We've been working with Sage, which is our ERP or trading platform, for a good number of years. And I think from my perspective, it's okay, but it's not going to help us do the things that we need to do. And I think 2023 we'll be working to an ERP change for a number of reasons, really, but mainly to improve our efficiency. It means we can bolt on different things into our business. We can look at some automated packing and picking to help the guys in the operations department there, and then we can add new services that will help our customers. And again, it's overall efficiency and moving forward with the times. I mean, Sage is fine, but really we want to be a cloud-based organisation. Everything else we do is in the cloud. Everything we've built is in the cloud. Let's put everything up there and just make sure that we can sustain what we need to do moving forward. So I think, they're the 5 things that are really on my agenda, along with the usual, guys, what we do, and let's get the work done. So, make sure we're still driving the right activity. If we drive the right activity, we know what works, and hopefully we'll produce similar results this year in terms of growth.
Absolutely. On that ERP system as well, I've had a look at what we're, at the software that we're looking at. And from a marketing perspective, there's some really, really interesting things that we could do there. And like you say, it streamlines everything, consolidates a bit more, so you're not having to pull services from different platforms and software providers. I see it as quite a big boom.
Well, if you look at where we are today, we've got Sage as our ERP, and then we've got bolt-ons everywhere, and then we've got offline working everywhere. And I think the product that we're looking at and we'll run with, I think, is all encompassing. It ties everything together. If we need to put APIs in place to patch things in, great, but they're already approved and tested. They're all upgradable in the cloud. We get away from some of the databases that we've got, which are okay, but they're a bit clunky. And again, trying to make our people more efficient, provide better service, quicker turnaround of quotes, better ways to present information, it can only be a help for us. So, I think, again, we don't talk about it too much. Well, I do, but we don't generally in the business. That our marketing is obviously, our third salesperson. And I think we've done a very good job this year in building a brand. So no pressure on you and Tom for next year, but there's still a lot to do.
Absolutely.
Just to remind
No, that's fine. We've got some quite big ideas, and we're really forward to getting stuck into it. There is actually another positive that's come from this year that is going to be enhanced again through 2023, which I omitted earlier on, but that's in our PIM system that we have. So we're working with we've worked with NG15 throughout this year, and having all of our data in this one centralized source of truth, for lack of a better phrase, is brilliant, and we hope to see more customers next year. They can pull our information directly. It's always going to be exactly to spec. It's always going to be correct and accurate, and of course it goes straight into look-ins as well. So that's been quite a big thing for us this year. That was a big project to get over the line. So
yeah, and I think as we expand, we need to make sure that the quality of our data goes along with it. And it seems to be, I don't know if you've seen this, but recently I've seen a bit more about BIM and requests for BIM files, and obviously we've had BIM files since Jesus was a boy, so we continue to do that. So hopefully there'll be a bit more adoption of that.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. Okay. Well, we've gone through the challenges, successes of this year, and what we think is, our plans for next year, what we think is going to happen there. At the start of 2022, the 3 words that you predicted to sum up the next 12 months were volatility, uncertainty, and availability. What would you say now for 2023?
add and repeat.
Okay.
I think, why would it be any different? It's certainly uncertain. None of us have a clear view. It's not like we've got very strong industry forecasts moving forward, load of cash, loads of labour. So it's going to be uncertain. It's going to be volatile. We've talked a bit about COVID in Asia. Let's not forget the amount of product that's in our sector that comes from Asia, not just Metpro parts, but parts for most of this industry. That's going to be challenging. Certainly going to be volatile. The uncertainty of it all, well, we'll have to see where we are. So I think it's always going to be challenging. But I think it's going to be exactly the same, Jake. And I think it's a case of just manage through it. Share what we can share with our customers as soon as we know if there's any difficulties or opportunities. Be at the forefront of the challenges, don't lag behind it, and hope it's going to get better. Because the one thing I do know is if you hope it's going to get better, it usually doesn't. You have to make some form of intervention. So, I think I would use exactly the same three words, Jake, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. Brilliant. Okay, well, look, Mark, I think that's catered for quite a lot, and we hope that's given, as always, some insight to the people listening to this. If anybody has got any questions or just wants a bit more information on any of the topics that we've picked up on today, get in touch with either myself or Mark directly. You can connect to us through LinkedIn, and also speak to our sales team, our internal sales team directly as well. They'd be happy to help. Mark, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks very much, Jake, and just take this opportunity to thank everyone for supporting Metpro during the year and wish you all a happy Christmas and Merry New Year.
Excellent. Perfect way to end. And we'll see you in 2023.
Goodbye. Take care. Thanks, Jake.